Jesus events here. What happens in the 60s? Constant struggle, 50s, 60s, constant struggle, until the war, the big war finally breaks out. But that's been brewing for 100 years. Actually, it's been brewing for maybe 150 years, ever since the Romans appeared. We don't realize how the extent of this struggle and the dates involved. You know, if you take 150 years of U.S. history, you're back almost to the Revolutionary War. That's like ancient times to us. This is going on constantly. The Romans took over in 63 BC. The uprising doesn't occur till 66 AD. That's 125 years. And that doesn't stop there. There's another one, as I told you, in 132. So if you add 132 to 63, you're at 200 years of history of constant revolutionary activity in Palestine. No wonder the Romans thought the Jews were in trouble. 200 years of struggle. Isn't it better to have a pacifistic Messiah? To pacify a Messiah? To stop this insane thing? Don't we want to pacify bin Laden? Don't we want the Muslims to have a pacifistic sheikh? Not an incendiary sheikh? And yet, what do the Muslims support on the street? Well, good or bad, like almost all peoples, they, right or wrong, support incendiary nationalism. But maybe the few educated and, you know, sophisticated, more thinking individuals want something a little calmer. But the mass is always open to this incendiary activity in almost all times and places, especially where nationalism goes. Look at modern German history. Look at Russia today, still a cauldron of worrisome activity, even though supposedly the Iron Curtain has fallen down. Anyway, to go back. So the people don't support the Pharisees. After 37, Herod represses everything. So that goes on down to this 4 BC events. So the people are waiting for his death. Meanwhile, he's killed his 2 sons by the Maccabean princess. So the son who finally takes over, or is going to take over at his death, is Archelaus. And I think his mother, he only lasts 10 years. I think his mother, if you look in the back of the book, is she's a Samaritan.
Malthus, I don't know.
I think she's a Samaritan woman. He's got Greek woman, Samaritan woman. This guy, he's got every kind of woman going. So probably a lot of others besides that. Okay, so people are really anxious that Herod's finally going, and they see this as an opportunity to strike a blow for freedom. This is what the fire drill caught us in the middle of. So in chapter 6 of the Jewish War, the rise and fall of Archelaus after Herod's death, Josephus describes the events occurring at that time. Archelaus was involved in fresh disturbances by the necessity of visiting Rome. He had spent a week mourning his father and provided funeral feasts for the population on a lavish scale in order to ingratiate himself with the people. Now he changed into white garments and proceeded to the temple where the people received him with varied acclamations. And he waved to the crowd from a golden throne and so on and so forth. And he was not going to assume royal power or even title until his succession was confirmed by Caesar. So you see, the Herodians ruled by Caesar's leave. They were basically Caesar, whoever was Caesar in Rome at this time. It is Augustus by proxy, and they were basically tax collectors for the Romans. get Jesus sitting with tax collectors in a amiable manner. This is a code. That's what I mean about the New Testament. This is a code. This is telling you Jesus approves of Herodian officialdom and Herodian officials and Herodians. Because they're the tax collectors. And they're not to be, set aside. This whole code. When Jesus sits with prostitutes, I will submit to you, that's a code. Or something,
It's like for DJ, or
Huh?
is it like, is it?
Well, I already said that was what it was
Yeah.
like. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Just leave it when we come to it. I'll tell you what I think it's like. Yeah, it's approving of this kind of behavior among, or at least not disapproving, or at least not judging it. So these are messages being sent out. Code messages by their authors. Now, is this the real Jesus? If it is, he's sending out this message. I don't happen to think it is the real Jesus. Not, or my Jesus, your Jesus. My Jesus doesn't sit with people who are in league with the Roman power structure. My Jesus doesn't sit with people who are, fornicating with every Roman official going. People who are looked upon as no better than prostitutes. So this is a way of saying, hey, no, don't judge these people. Now, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but I'm saying the people, if I were in Palestine at that time, I would be saying, I'm sure, yes, judge these people. So you see, we love Jesus. Because Jesus is supposed to be the epitome of someone of all love, that we love. So when these kind of messages come underneath the surface, most people don't get them, really. Because they're not looking at it from the time of that time. They're looking at it from the Salvation Army ethos of our modern time. Let's go down into the inner cities and save people, and don't be afraid of the government authorities. They're not really there to do you harm, and so on and so forth. Just be a good citizen, and then, as Paul says, and they'll leave you alone, and so on. So we're looking at it through our own days, our own times, as a good citizen of the Greco-Roman Empire, but we're not looking at it in Palestinian ways. So the messages are different, and then you say, well, is that Jesus? Well, is it your Jesus? You have to decide that. Now, it's not my Jesus. Say, well, you don't have a Jesus, Eisenman. Well, you can't be sure of that. The point is that I'm looking for the historical Jesus. And the question is, how do you know your Jesus is historical and our Jesus isn't? You're the one who has to decide that. I just can't see a popular messianic figure in